That's Jimmy Stein. I'm Clint Lamb, and this is the Cover Crimson YouTube channel. Jimmy, interesting conversation going on with Alabama in the college football playoff rankings. I guess we'll start off by asking, what was your thoughts on Alabama checking in at number 10?
Well, I wasn't too happy about it. To me, the issue is being behind Notre Dame. This is the year the committee is supposed to really take into account strength of schedule, who you beat, and when you compare resumes, Alabama's just better than Notre Dame. I mean, strength of schedule's not even close. Alabama's quality wins far exceed Notre Dame. Alabama's got 4 over their own top 25. Notre Dame just has 1. Notre Dame's second best win is Pitt. And I just think Alabama should be ahead of Notre Dame. And making it even worse was Hunter Yurichek's comments about Alabama's run game, which is, in my mind, irrelevant to anything on the planet Earth. I mean, now, as Alabama analysts, you and I are always talking about the run game, and it is something that has to improve. But how that's a topic to the committee and not Alabama's wins over ranked teams is apparently not a topic. And how you could be the top ranked 1-loss team, you lose to number 8 by 2 points. Now you're the 3rd ranked 2-loss team. Makes absolutely no sense to me. I get being behind Oklahoma. I get that, because I do think head-to-head matters. But being behind Notre Dame really bothers me, and I worry. I don't think this will be the case, Clint, but I worry that we're getting set up for a major disappointment. And I'm talking about even with the win against Auburn, in the sense that I'm worried about a couple teams behind us, like, for instance, Miami, in the sense that I'm worried that they'll ultimately feel like if we're including Notre Dame, we must include Miami. Alabama's in a position right now where you can't get leapfrogged by anyone. Alabama's in the last position to make the playoff. You have to be top 10 to make the playoff, because group of 5 and the ACC champ is going to be outside of the top 12. So you got to be top 10. Alabama's already in the last spot. You're probably not going to get a big bump from beating Auburn. If you beat Auburn, you won't get a big bump there. So I even worry about getting leapfrogged, to be honest, based on where Alabama's ranked and what the committee said, after the rankings were released.
I think the biggest concern is BYU, because you are going to have the ACC champion get bumped in there. That's, who that ends up being, I don't know. There will be a conversation with Miami. I agree with that. But you're also going to have the group of 5 team, which is Tulane right now. They'll get put in. And so Alabama's sitting at number 10. Like, a lot of people see that and they're like, they're fine. Like, you got those 2 spots that are reserved right there at 11 and 12. Alabama's currently sitting there. Great. But what happens if BYU beats Texas Tech in the Big 12 championship? That's where things get dicey, because they're ranked number 11. They would get an automatic bid or would get included in that group. But I don't think Texas Tech sitting at number 5, ahead of Ole Miss, ahead of Oregon. I don't think they're dropping with 2 losses out of the college football playoff. So now you've got 2 Big 12 teams in. In that instance, now Alabama, that 3rd team, has to drop out. That's currently ranked inside the top 11. Alabama would be that 3rd team. So that is where the biggest concern comes into play. And what I don't like about it is we've heard a couple of different things. The reason that this is most concerning to me is I've heard people say, well, Alabama just shouldn't play in the SEC championship game. Don't risk losing another game and them dropping you out or punishing you for it. Don't even participate. I don't think that matters. I think if they're willing to drop out a 10-3 SEC runner-up in Alabama because BYU gets that bid, I think they would drop out a 10-2 Alabama that didn't just lose a football game, that didn't even go to the SEC championship. I also think that the way that, whether it was intentional or unintentional, the way they've set this up is you can leave Alabama out and no one can complain about, well, it's because we went to the SEC championship and lost, you shouldn't even be participating in the SEC championship. Like, that would be one massive catastrophic situation for the college football playoff committee, or really just college football in general, is if you had a team that participated in a massive conference championship like Alabama in the SEC, if they were punished for that and they were dropped out because they suffered a loss, that would be a huge deal. But with where they're at and the way this is currently potentially setting up, it wouldn't have mattered whether, in a lot of ways, Alabama's only surefire way of making the college football playoff 100% is winning the SEC championship. And that means you got to get there. It's possible that Alabama does nothing wrong. They beat Eastern Illinois like a drum. They beat Auburn like a drum. And then they still don't get the SEC championship. And then it's still possible that they end up not making the college football playoff. Not saying it's going to happen. Surely someone ahead of Alabama is going to drop a game. It's a matter of, is it Oregon? I think a 2-loss Oregon would probably drop out of there. I'm not 100% sure on that one. When Alabama suffered its second loss, it dropped to, 6 spots?
6 spots.
Oklahoma, possible they could end up losing. Notre Dame, I mean, come on, they're not losing. But it is possible that a team, one of those 3 teams, I don't even know if probably a 2-loss Ole Miss as well, because you talk about the way Alabama dropped. I would say 6 through 9, you've got to have one of those teams lose, and you got to hope that if it's Oregon or Ole Miss, that they're still willing to put Alabama ahead of them. I just don't like the way it's setting up right now, Jimmy.
Yeah, in the year that they're supposed to take strength of schedule as a major factor in who you play, Alabama has the highest strength of schedule in the entire top 25. I mean, as a matter of fact, per ESPN strength of record, and that's a metric they look at, by the way, the team with, if you go down the rankings, who has a higher strength of schedule than Alabama, you have to go all the way down to like 54, Florida. They've played a schedule even tougher than Alabama, and they're way down at 54. Why? Well, the schedule. Alabama's played a similar schedule. And again, it's mixed messages. And as far as losing the SEC championship game and being left out, I know some people are concerned about that. And I get that concern based on where Alabama's in the rankings and based on what Hunter Yurachek said last night. But they sort of set a precedent a year ago. SMU, with no real quality wins, their best win was Louisville, not like Alabama's best win at Georgia this year. SMU's best win last year was Louisville. They played 2 good teams. BYU, they lost, and a 3-loss Clemson team in the ACC championship game, they lost. They were still allowed to stay in and not punished for losing that game to 3-loss Clemson, who was not in the top 12. If Alabama goes the SEC championship game, you're probably playing top 4 Texas A&M, top 4 Georgia. Louisville played somebody wasn't even in the playoff field with 3 losses. They weren't punished for losing the ACC championship game a year ago. It would be crazy, in my mind, to reverse that precedent when a far more deserving team is then kicked out for lose. So I'm not worried about going to the SEC championship game, losing, and that kicking you out. I'm not worried about that. But as Clint said, so true. Hey, the way the math is working out, Alabama could win the next 2 games and still not be in Atlanta. That is a possibility. But that said, the ranking stuff is either maddening or entertaining, however what you want to look at. It's a lot to talk about. But there's no doubt that, hey, if Alabama loses to Eastern Illinois or Auburn, Alabama's out. I mean, there's not going to be a lose to Auburn and still get in. There's too many teams with a good case. It's not like last year where SMU, I don't think, had a very good case and they were in anyway. I don't think that's going to be the case this year. A lot of teams will have a good case to get in. So you lose and you're out, and there's no room for complaining.
First of all, I can't believe Texas fans are even having this conversation talking about, hey, that we're getting screwed over too. We lost 2 top 5 teams. We're going to get left. I mean, it's like, okay, Alabama, South Carolina, and Ole Miss cross a river. I mean, because we've already been the witness that the 3 regular season losses, you're not getting in. For some reason, people have been claiming, they claimed it last year going into the 12-team playoff, or going into last season, which was the first year of the 12-team playoff. And then they tried to claim it this year, 3-loss teams are going to be in the conversation, and you're going to see a 3-loss team get in. You're probably not, unless it's a conference champion. Then then they're probably not getting in. Now, granted, that doesn't mean that won't be the case. There won't be a year where that happens. There was a 2-loss team make it to the BCS National Championship game, but that was such a rarity. I'm starting to think, now granted, it's about to go to 16, so I mean, at this point, we'll just start complaining about who's number 17 or whatever. But it's right. I mean, at this point, I don't like how they're arguing a lot of this stuff. Like right now, they're saying Pitt is, Notre Dame just blew out a Pitt team that is a good football team. They were just ranked in the top 25. Go look at what their schedule is going to end up looking like. Now, maybe we can have a different conversation here in a couple of weeks, and maybe this current argument will be gone. But Pitt plays Georgia Tech and they play Miami their last 2 games. More than likely, they're going 7-5. Florida State, who is considered a very bad loss for Alabama, it is the thing that everybody keeps pointing to, even though it was back in week 1. I mean, it is possible. They play NC State, a 5-5 team that just got blown out by somebody, that's good, not great. And then they play Florida, who's 3-7 currently right now. It is possible that Florida State, the really, really bad loss for Alabama, finishes with the same record as Pitt, who everybody's saying, oh, man, I mean, just Notre Dame just took them to the woodshed. Now, granted, one of them was a big win versus a loss. But my point is either Pitt's a really bad team if they finish at 7-5, or Florida State, if they finish at 7-5 too, is not this really, really bad team that everybody's painting them. You can't have both. Yet people are trying to have both. We're getting into crazy things like rushing stats. I mean, first of all, we have said Bama needs to improve the run game. Didn't know it was their entire college football playoff hopes and dreams were going to be dictated based off of that stat, which is still mind-blowing to me. But it's just another thing that they're trying to use as an excuse. Here's what I will say, though, Jimmy. This is why winning all the close games is not beneficial, because you're not getting credit for beating a bunch of top 25 teams. It is style points. Right now, what the committee has done, and I can't necessarily say that I blame them, but if you look at these 2 teams right now, if I'm looking through a completely unbiased lens, Notre Dame is playing better football than Alabama, a lot better. So they are saying it's close, and Notre Dame looks like the better team right now. So then we'll just come up with a bunch of justifiable reasons to have Notre Dame ahead of Alabama. I don't like that at all. I don't agree with that. Notre Dame is over here. I mean, everybody keeps talking about how great they look, and they've been on – someone said on Twitter they're on a war path right now, and it's like, well, I don't know if you realize, but Alabama was on a bit of a war path post-Florida State for about 8 weeks, including beating 4 straight top 25 opponents without a bye week, the first time in SEC history. And the whole reason that they just suffered their second loss that you're now criticizing them for is because they had to keep playing top 25 teams, including a college football playoff team this past week that they lost by 2 points to, despite losing the turnover battle 3-0, which is, I mean, how often is that going to happen in a football game? I mean, it's like Notre Dame's over here playing. I mean, okay, Pitt, yes, USC, and yes, they got to think it was a 34-24 win over them. But, I mean, that game was a battle up until I think midway through the fourth quarter, and then I think they made it 2 scores at that point. But that was a battle pretty much until the end. And I just there's so much inconsistency with the committee right now. It is absurd.
Yeah, even extending direct inconsistencies to where Hunter Yurachek sort of praising Texas A&M for their thrilling comeback win at home to come roaring back to beat South Carolina, and then criticizing Alabama for beating South Carolina, which was also a comeback win on the road. And Alabama is criticized for, while A&M is praised. That's just outrageous. And I think his performance, really it was almost his performance, Hunter Yurachek with Reese Davis, it was almost his performance worse than the rankings themselves, which, can be criticized. Again, as far as Alabama is concerned, I think being behind Notre Dame is problematic for Alabama. And as Clint said, there's BYU right behind you, Miami right behind that, who beat Notre Dame. Still a lot of football left to be played. I mean, let's see. The only rankings that really, really, really matter are the final ones on Selection Sunday. There are 3 weekends of games to be played before we get to that point. and the deck of cards is going to be spilt on the floor and picked back up by them, because there will be some crazy results. There always is. That's what makes it fun. We'll see what happens. But obviously, Alabama's got to take care of business, or none of it will matter to Alabama.
And what you got to say is this is what I was getting at before, and I kind of got sidetracked. It is how Alabama has looked. That is directly related to Alabama. They have looked flawed. Those flaws have been on full display. And if the College Football Playoff Committee is getting on Twitter every Saturday, all they're seeing is Bama fans doing nothing but moaning and complaining about the team and how they look terrible. And oh my gosh. And granted, I've contributed to that. But it's like, if any of them just keep up with anything, it's like, first of all, you can kind of see it with your own eyes. But then when you've got an entire fan base talking about how terrible they are each and every weekend, and then all of a sudden it gets to college football playoff rankings Tuesday, and now they're saying, now hold up, they're a really good football team. It's like, well, I mean, maybe you should act like it then. And that applies to me as well. But what I will say is there's a certain standard at Alabama, and Alabama fans are trying to compare things to those standards. The reason that they're so upset about the run game is because Alabama has never had this bad of a run game. They've always been, to an extent, and except for the last couple of years, they've been able to rely on a run game. It was at bare minimum a very strong complementary piece when you talk about the 2020 team with Najee Harris. Really, really good running game, but it was definitely complementary and in a lot of ways secondary to Mac Jones and the high-octane passing game. You talk about 2021 with Bryce Young, Heisman winning season. Good run game, effective. You had a really good player in Brian Robinson Jr., but it was secondary. So, like, they've never seen it where it was this bad. And so there's like some panic and some overreaction that a lot of other teams, it's like they wouldn't focus on that. But at the same time, putting this stuff on tape, Kane Womack says it all the time, as far as a defense, and the offense is the same thing, was a team. You've got to answer for what you put on tape. That's why Alabama, they need to make some statements. There's only so much of a statement you can make against Eastern Illinois. It's not going to make a difference. But you need to start getting some of these things corrected, and then you need to make sure you're focused, because we were talking last year, man, should Alabama play in the SEC championship? Should they get there? Now what if they do? We're still new to this whole 12-team playoff, so we didn't know how a third loss could potentially impact Alabama. And everybody was kind of making the same argument they were making prior to Tuesday's rankings, where it's like, ooh, if they go to the SEC championship and then they lose, it's possible that they get left out of the college football playoff. Should they not play? And then they go and lay an egg against Oklahoma, and it's like, well, that discussion was all for naught. Like, that was a complete waste of time. It didn't end up mattering. So we can have this conversation all day and go ahead and start kicking it off. If Alabama doesn't do what it needs to do against both Eastern Illinois and Auburn, it's not going to matter. So for them, that's where it has to start.
This is how dumb the comments about Alabama's rushing yards are in the context of things. Alabama clearly has to beat Auburn to make the playoff. We all know that. So let's say in the offensive staff meeting, and they're not going to say this, but let's say in the offensive staff meeting, Ryan Grubb, Nick Sheridan, DeBoer, they say, we've got to win this game. What we do best is throw the ball. We're going into Auburn with the idea we're going to throw it 45 times. We're putting it all on time, the receivers. We're going to throw it 45, 50 times because we got to win the game. It's what we do best. But then another voice in the room is saying, well, if we don't run the ball, the committee's not going to appreciate what we did. We're going to have to run the ball because that's what the committee wants to see from Alabama, even though it may hurt Alabama's chances to actually win the football game, which I thought was the whole point of playing games in the first place. See, who wins, who scores the most points. Apparently, the committee wants to see Alabama run the ball, even though that gives Alabama less of a chance to win at Auburn. So that's so dumb. And if it was the other way around, I'd say the same thing. What if we're a team that rushed for 350 yards, but couldn't throw it? Would they be commenting about that?
Their run game was good enough to be the highest ranked one-loss team literally last week. And then you end up losing the game once again by 2 points, in which you have run the ball better than you have in probably the last month. And somehow all of a sudden it starts to matter.
Outrushed Oklahoma.
Granted, it was 80 yards. It was nothing to write home about. I totally understand that. But if you actually watch that game, which I fully question if all of these committee members watch all of these games, I really do. But if you did watch that game, you would have seen Alabama actually ran the football and were better than they have in a while. And they seem, I say seem, we'll wait and see, because that's the best run defense in the SEC. It's one of the best run defenses in college football. So it's not like, my point in saying that is to say it didn't matter at all, and then all of a sudden it matters. This is my point. It's not that it matters. It doesn't matter. What they are doing is they have this belief or this result, and they're coming up with reasons to justify it. It is completely ass backwards, and it's something that people are never going to be on board with. Here's what I'll say. Until last night, and even after the college football playoff rankings were first released, my mistake has been, there's no way they're leaving out a 10-2 Alabama team out of the playoffs. And I was even of the belief you're not going to punish them for, being the team that, congratulations, you get to play in the SEC championship. But guess what? Now you're starting your college football playoff a week early, because if you lose, you go home and you're done. You'll play in a bowl game, but your college football playoff chances are over. I didn't think that would happen either. So I haven't even been paying attention to where teams are ranked. I'm like, no. Alabama's fine. Alabama controls its own destiny. And then after the rankings, I'm looking at this and I'm like, no, they're number 10. They're in a good spot. But as soon as someone brought up BYU, and I don't remember who was the first to bring it up to me, but I appreciate it, and they laid out that scenario, I start looking at it. I'm like, that's interesting. And then I start thinking, Notre Dame doesn't have to play anybody in the conference championship. It's not like they got to go out there. So the fact that they're already ranked ahead, how do they fall? Are you going to give Alabama credit and have them jump them if they beat Auburn, a team that is at that point would finish 5-7? They have to beat Alabama to get bowl eligible. It's like, no, they're probably not going to have them jump Notre Dame for that. Okay, then let's say everything remains the same. Where does Alabama fit in? And BYU ends up beating Texas Tech. Then that conversation becomes Texas Tech, Alabama, with where they have Texas Tech. If they would have had them behind Ole Miss and behind Oregon, I would have said, yeah, they probably drop out there. I think they made a statement, which they already made this statement, by having them as the, second one-loss team behind Georgia, ahead of Ole Miss and ahead of Oregon. It would be difficult for them to drop all the way from 5 to, out of the top 12, especially considering they already beat BYU. So even if BYU beats them, the argument is, well, we split with them. We played them twice. We each got ourselves one. Can you say they're better? Probably not. So, it's just, when I started looking at it, I'm like, man, I have not been taking this seriously enough. And it is, they're painting a picture right now. And who's to say? A lot of people are like, there's no way, Texas Tech is losing to BYU. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, I wouldn't say that. I don't know. I'm not going to get all conspiratorial. It's one game. First of all, last year, it's like you needed one of two things to happen. You needed SMU to win and beat Clemson, or you needed Clemson to blow out SMU, and then you could start really having a conversation. They finally play a team with a pulse, and they get absolutely destroyed. Clemson absolutely taking them to the woodshed, and then all of a sudden it's like switch was flipped. SMU makes a massive comeback, makes it respectable, and then all of a sudden you got Dabo Swinney on TV right after. Man, that is a college football playoff team if I've ever seen run one over there, across the sidelines. And it's like ACC really needed to get 2 in. Don't want to get too conspiratorial, but I'm saying, man, that worked out just how you needed it to. Big 12's over here, if they really want to, hey, split those 2, and you get 2 in. So I'm once again not saying this is going to happen, but I'm saying, these are things I think about because I do have a conspiratorial mind sometimes, and it's like with where Alabama's at, sitting behind Notre Dame, they're already setting you up for it right now.
Yeah, I try not to be conspiracy oriented. I try not to be, but I do think Notre Dame, I think they want Notre Dame in. And their problem is they want Notre Dame in. And I'm not saying Notre Dame doesn't deserve to be in. I'm not making that. I agree that Notre Dame's got the best losses, if you want to call it that. Their losses are explainable and understandable. My issue with Notre Dame is they don't have as many good wins as Alabama does. Sure, their 2 losses might be better than Alabama's 2 losses because one of Alabama's losses is pretty bad. Notre Dame doesn't have that, but they just don't have good wins. Like Clint already said earlier, their second best win is Pitt. Looks like Pitt may finish no better than Florida State potentially, but I think they want Notre Dame in. And the problem with wanting Notre Dame in, what do you do with Miami? What do you do with Miami, who beat Notre Dame head-to-head and they have the same 1-loss record? Well, this is what you do. You put Alabama between them, because no one today, no one is arguing that Miami should be ahead of Alabama. So if you put Alabama behind Notre Dame, now you got a barrier. Now they can keep Miami away from Notre Dame, because they're not going to put Miami ahead of Alabama. At least they aren't today, based on strength of schedule and quality wins and all that stuff. And Miami's losses, by the way, are to SMU and Louisville. Not great. Not terrible, not great. So my conspiracy theory would be they placed Alabama behind Notre Dame as a barrier so they could stay away from the Miami beat Notre Dame head-to-head. And therefore, Miami must be ahead, because you can't put Miami ahead of Alabama, or at least they can't today. I'll get paranoid about it later on. But for now, you can't put Miami ahead of Alabama.
Well, yeah, and I mean, Louisville was a losable game for Indiana last year. It was a losable game. We like to paint people or teams like Florida State as a really, really bad football team. You want to see really, really bad? Who was even their opponent? Who did they replace them with? I forget. Western Illinois or something like that Indiana replaced Louisville with. It's one of those schools. I mean, but so Western Illinois. That's a really, really bad football team. When Florida State went against that type of football team, East Tennessee State or whatever, earlier this year, they beat them 77-0. That's an actual really bad football team. Florida State is a losable game for Alabama. Should they have lost it? No. And you can criticize them for that. But Louisville was a losable game for Indiana. Would they have lost that game? Maybe not. Probably not. But it was losable. What you're essentially saying is, don't schedule any sort of losable game. Make sure you go get the Western Illinois and the East Tennessee States, and you beat them 77-0. But at the same time, let's say Alabama follows that path. Week 1 college football, there was like 3 decent games that weekend, including Texas and Ohio State. There was like one other one that was better. But the third best game was Alabama-Florida State. It was a helmet game, and everybody had a hell of a time watching Alabama lose that game as well. Why? Because it was a losable game. Doesn't mean Florida State could beat Ohio State. Would they? No, but it would be a losable football game for Ohio State. So everybody is now advocating, don't go schedule the Florida States if you don't have to. Go get the Western Illinois. Have everybody, you'll be favored by 62 points going in. Your viewership will be absolute dog water. And, no one will enjoy watching that game whatsoever. We'll get way less quality football across the board. If everybody started taking the Indiana route, then people would start complaining. As long as it's just Indiana and barely anybody's watching Indiana as it is, well, they're getting a higher viewership now because they're really good. But I'm saying historically, it's like, no, I mean, they're like, I don't care who they play. I wasn't planning on watching them anyways. I don't like watching Indiana, Northern Illinois, or Northwestern. Like, I'm not watching that football game either. So I don't care who they play, but let Alabama throw a bunch of these on the schedule, as many as they can, or Georgia or anybody else. And now it's a big problem because it's like, oh, man, all we got is terrible football to talk about or watch each and every weekend. It's not a good product, in my opinion. You're selling avoid playing in a conference championship if you can, if you're Notre Dame. Like, you ain't got to go prove yourself against a good football team. If they even had a conference championship game where it's like they had one more opponent, they don't get to skate against Syracuse and Stanford, and now you're in the college football playoff. Congratulations. There would be one more standing in the way. Then you wouldn't hear me complaining at all. Because it's like, if they go out and they win that football game, even if it was like not a great team, if it was top 25, it's like, okay, at least you got to go play somebody with a pulse. You beat them, and we wouldn't have as much to say. But the fact they get to sit there and coast, and Alabama and all these other teams are over here trying to figure things out, it's not a good product, in my opinion.
And, and plus, you play that extra game and you have players get hurt and such. If Greg Burns listening to the show, and he certainly should, if Greg Burns listening to the show, what I'd ask is, look, you've seen the committee work, even when it was the 4 team, but you've seen the committee work. Are they rewarding teams for winning a bunch of games and being 11-1, 10-2, low strength of schedule? Are they rewarding those teams, or are they rewarding the teams that play a really tough schedule? No, they're rewarding the teams that are winning games.
Right.
That's what they've consistently done. They reward the teams with wins against no matter who, and punish the teams with losses against no matter who. Therefore, it is crazy for Alabama to continue to schedule losable non-conference games.
Which is so sad for us to say. I hate saying that with an absolute passion, but you're 100% right. It is foolish. And what are we doing? We're talking college football playoff rankings for over half an hour because they're playing Eastern Illinois. Let's be honest here. We're going to talk about Eastern Illinois. That's going to be something that we discuss, and there's things worth talking about. But I'm saying that's what we're doing. But we're just throw as many of these on the future schedules as possible. I mean, that's such a sad state of affairs.
When you play a tough non-conference game, you know what you're doing. You know, when they do these 10-kilometer races, I know nothing about running. I can't run from here from one end of my condo to the other. When you are running these 10-kilometer races, they do it on flat ground. That's the race, 10 kilometers, flat ground. Why are you saying, well, we're going to run the same race, but we're going to run it on an incline. We're going to run it uphill the whole way. We're going to go the whole way, and we're going to run it uphill. Why? Yep. Why?
Because it challenges you, Jimmy. That's what they want to tell you. Because it challenges you. It's hey, don't run from competition. It's okay if Indiana does it. We're not going to. I mean, yeah, we'll throw some shade, but it's not going to affect them whatsoever. We'll just complain about it.
No, that's exactly right. So there's the committee has once again in a year that they were supposed to factor in strength of schedule.
Was that supposed to be this year, by the way? I wondered about that because they agreed to move to 9, but they said they were going to go ahead and start taking the strength of schedule into account. Okay.
And they should have been taking it. By the way, why did they have to make them do that? They should have been doing it all along. And by the way, I don't think Texas Tech should be ahead of Ole Miss. I'm not just saying it's an Alabama thing. I don't think Texas Tech should be ahead of Ole Miss based on what Ole Miss has done and an Ole Miss's loss, at Georgia. Or they'd be an undefeated SEC team. I just don't. There's no reason to make the out of conference schedule. And now that you're going to 9 SEC games, now it's insane to play. Don't play Florida State at Florida State. Play Duke in Atlanta.
I will give. I was 100% wrong when they announced they're going to take strength of schedule into account a lot more. A lot of people saw this coming. They said, "Man, they're hosing you guys." A lot of Bama fans, and I was arguing with every one of them. I'm like, guys, this is good, man. We get one less cupcake weekend, one more SEC opponent from a watchability, from a fan's perspective, and good product. This is what you want. Stop. Like they said, they're going to take care of Alabama or the SEC in general. They're going to take all these things into account. Stop. It's fine. And those people that were complaining were 100% right. 100%. I was wrong. I'm fully here to admit it because they are proving that it is more of the same. When who you beat is like third or fourth that you take into account. If all things are equal, like 3 or 4th,
rushing yards apparently.
Yeah, I mean, and another thing too is based off of the dialogue, and I said this on Twitter as well. It almost seems like the College Football Playoff Committee respects the teams they had in their top 25, a Pitt, a Penn State, more than they do the teams that are actually still in their top 25. They're talking about Pitt like they're a really good football team. And yeah, they fell off, and we still view that as a great win. Well, do you view the wins that Alabama got as great wins? Because they essentially mean absolutely nothing to you. You're not even – I'm not saying you're not taking into account. I'm saying that it is so far down your list where it's got to be tiebreaker number 5 before you even start to look at that kind of thing. And I don't agree with that approach at all because guess what? All these teams that you're wanting to put in the college football playoff, they're good teams. So maybe we should see how teams do against good teams. I mean, great. They can beat up on anybody they want that's 6-6 or worse. They can beat them 40-0. And if it was a college football playoff filled with those types of teams, then I'd be saying Alabama out of all these teams, they're probably the ones that are going to screw this up the most. No, that you're playing good football teams. So maybe you should see how these playoff contenders are playing against good football teams. That should be the litmus test.
Of all the teams in the top 25 and their rankings, of all the teams in the top 25, Alabama has the toughest strength of schedule. Number 1, of all the top 25 teams, Alabama, highest strength of schedule rating. Also, Alabama has the most wins against the top 25 rankings. Alabama has the most wins. And yet here we are as Alabama fans, we're going to get left out.
I mean, And once again, it's possible Florida State finishes 5-7. They might finish 6-6. They might finish 7-5. None of that's great. But what I will say is, they lost games they shouldn't have. There's no doubt about it. They've also lost to some pretty good teams as well, like Virginia. Virginia is a top 20 team. Like they've lost some of those losses. It's the same thing with like South Carolina. I pointed this out yesterday. South Carolina is like 3-7 right now. 6 of the 7 losses are to top 25 opponents, and the other one is LSU, who their only 4 losses right now are to top 25 opponents as well. And so like either LSU or South Carolina was going to lose that game. It's like, and yet everybody will say South Carolina is terrible because of their record. I'm not saying they're good. I'm saying they're better than 3-7. They're a lot better than 3-7. They just had to play. If you are the 16th best team in the SEC, based off of how things are supposed to work out, if you play the 15 teams ahead of you, you should lose to all those teams. But that doesn't mean I'm getting ahead of myself, but you understand my point.
It's crazy how good the SEC is. Think of it in this terms. South Carolina, a 3-win team, led undefeated Texas A&M by 27 points. What 3-win team in the Big Ten is gonna sprint out to a 27-0 lead over Ohio State? None of them. It's impossible. It's impossible. That's how good the SEC is. A 3-win team can crush the undefeated 3rd-ranked team in the country in a half of football. That just doesn't happen in the other leagues.
Yeah, and everybody will say that well, that's because Ohio State doesn't, they're not going to allow themselves to lose to that kind of, or get down to that kind of team like that. It's like, well, then okay, Ohio State plays Texas A&M. Ohio State might win, but they win by 4. And it's like, well, that kind of tells you guys are pretty equal, and South Carolina took them to the brink, and no one in your conference could take you to the brink. Maybe that's because the SEC is better. No one ever thinks about these things in that way.
If Ohio State played this weekend at South Carolina, this weekend, I know they'd be favored by double digits, and they'd probably win. I'm not saying they wouldn't win, but I'd tell them this: buckle up.
Yeah.
Buckle up. Don't bring your C game.
Especially when it's the sixth team in a row that you've played like that, by the way. That's the other. And absolutely. I talked about this with Ty Simpson, and we have spent close to 40 minutes complaining about the college football playoff. I know a lot of Alabama fans feel the same way. There are probably some that have been like, okay, I need to turn this off. I couldn't do this. We're not talking ball. I'm venting. This is a venting episode. But I kind of mentioned something yesterday on the Miller's Edge with Christian Miller, talking about this type of thing with players specifically. Julian Sayin gets the up and downs as far as opponents. Fernando Mendoza at Indiana, he gets the up and downs. What did Ty Simpson get after he had a really rocky performance against Florida State? He got Louisiana Monroe. He goes 17-17. He balls out. He plays Wisconsin, one of those Big Ten teams, completely balls out against them. It was a confidence-building opportunity back to back. He kind of had a rocky performance, was able to bounce back, get his confidence back. When you're playing the types of opponents that Ty Simpson has been playing each and every week, and they are just bringing it, and you aren't playing that well, there's no, hey, you know what? Let's go out there and have you throw for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns and have 1 pass hit the ground this week against Purdue, and then you'll have that confidence back and you're ready to go. No, it is, hey, you got to keep bringing it. Everything, it's not going to look great. They're going to be, throwing a lot of different things at you. It's like each and every week, Ty Simpson has to bring it. I'm hoping that Eastern Illinois provides a chance for him to get some of his confidence back. Go out there, do some really good things, throw the football around, have a lot of success, a lot of yards per attempt, all those things. Maybe try to get some confidence back ahead of Auburn. Going to Jordan Hare is not going to be easy. You're probably not going to have one of those type of performances, but you're hoping for some of these things against Eastern Illinois. Yet other quarterbacks in the Big Ten and stuff, they get one of these about every, not every other week, but bare minimum every 3 weeks, you get a team that you get to go beat up on, and it's a confidence building performance.
Yeah, not many quarterbacks, because I thought about it in terms of Alabama, but especially when you think about it in terms of quarterbacks, when you play in a row, and I know Eastern Illinois is going to, obviously be what amounts to a bye week in this, but 3 SEC games in a row, Ty Simpson and Alabama have to go against Blake Baker's LSU defense, Brent Venables' Oklahoma defense, and now DJ Durkin's Auburn defense, which has been really good all year until the last game. I'm going to say that's tough. That's really, really tough. And like you said, no real break for Tide. Now, I do think Eastern Illinois is going to be a break. And I was looking at their numbers, and for those unaware, they're an FCS team, and Alabama should beat any FCS team fairly handily. They should, but Eastern Illinois is not even a good FCS team. They're bad, and they're at their own level. They got crushed in their last game by Lindenwood. And I honestly, I know I'm a football fanatic. I didn't even really know Lindenwood played football. I knew they had a basketball team. and they got crushed by Lindenwood, who has a losing record, by the way. I think Lindenwood's like 5-6. Lindenwood just crushed them. I mean, in every way, from the scoreboard to the stats. Lindenwood had 1 million yards. Eastern Illinois had next to nothing. I mean, so Eastern Illinois is not good. And this is a get-right game for Alabama. But can you get right against an opponent that bad? I don't know, but I do like that the confidence level of Alabama's offense is going to be ascending going into what's going to be a cauldron of anxiety at Jordan-Hare.
Well, let's just be honest. I think you already said it, but I'll just confirm it, and I'll say it a little bit more bluntly. Eastern Illinois is not a good football team, folks. Doesn't mean, if Alabama comes out flat, they do a bunch. I'm not saying they can't, have some success against Alabama. I'm saying that what they put on the field, I try to go and watch as much tape as I possibly could of them. It's not good football. They're not playing good football. But I will say is they are 3-8 right now, and they just came off of a 30-point loss to Lindenwood, who you pointed out is not a good football team themselves. They still beat Western Illinois, who Indiana replaced Louisville with. So just pointing out that's who Indiana's going to get as an opponent, is trying to load their schedule up with many of those as possible. That's the last one I'm going to say. I just thought it was funny because it's on their schedule. Anyways, this is more about Alabama than it is Eastern Illinois. And once again, I say that, and Nick Saban can come out of nowhere at any point and slap me right upside the head. And if he did, I wouldn't blame him. But
we're getting the through a tin horn speech, me and you.
Yes, we are. There's no doubt about it. And if they run for 300 yards on this defense, I don't care if Alabama wins. I'm still going to say, no, they don't deserve playoff or nothing else. Leave them out of everything. Don't even let it go to a bowl game at that point. But watching them, they got two different quarterbacks. One of them's more of a pocket guy. The other one is more of a dual threat. The dual threat has thrown 4 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Hadn't been all that great, but he has been like their second leading rusher. I think their leading rusher right now, their leading rusher is averaging 3.9 yards per carry. Their leading receiver has
Kevin Riley. That's what Kevin Riley averages for those that want to.
Yeah, and that's against their schedule as well. You got their leading receiver has fewer than 400 yards receiving. Their leading touchdown guy, receiving touchdown, is 3. That backup or that other quarterback, LaCrue, he has had 7 rushing touchdowns and over 500 yards with his legs. Not really good throwing the football, but he is an effective weapon on the ground. That's a lot of their offense. And when you look across the board, like their offensive line on paper, 6'5", 310, 6'3", 315, 6'3", 325, 6'5", 330. Like they're pretty big. They're not small necessarily, even though they look way smaller on tape. But that's at least what they're listed at. But it's just, right now, this is obviously a game that is more so about Alabama. So all we'll say is we're just keeping this to one episode today. What are your thoughts? What are some of the things that you want to see from Alabama this weekend going against this type of opponent?
Yeah, I will say when I looked over Eastern Illinois, the one thing that they do apparently pretty well that I think is going to cause to some degree an issue for Alabama is they have a lot of tackles for loss. They seem to be a penetrating defense, not a ton of sacks, but a ton of tackles for loss, like a lot. And sometimes these smaller defensive linemen are tough to handle for the big SEC linemen, these big, huge guys like a Cam Dewberry, Geno Vandermark, these really big 320, 330-pound guys. When they have to block these undersized defensive linemen, that can be kind of tricky because that's not who they see. We didn't recruit those guys because they're really good at handling quick 245-pound guys. We recruit them because they can handle interior SEC defensive tackles who are 300 pounds. I'm just saying, if you want to say what's going to be a challenge, I think for Alabama, converting after a handful of understandable tackles for loss. There could be some run plays, some sacks, some plays that don't go well. Then you've got to convert 2nd and 12, 2nd and 15, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12. That'll be a good challenge. And I want to see Alabama challenged to a degree. That's going to be good for Alabama if that happens to an extent. I know it's not good to give up a bad play on offense. I'm just saying, I think the more challenges the offensive faces, the better for Alabama. So that's one thing I would like to see. Overcome any minor adversity that happens in the game. Overcome that with a good play. I would like to see Alabama run the ball some and have some success doing it, just because, heck, I get convinced watching Alabama sometimes that they wouldn't be able to run the ball well against air. Well, this is a slightly better than air. So, but run the ball. I mean, Lindenwood ran for 200 yards, over 200 yards against them. Surely Alabama could do that. Surely, right? So have some success running the ball. I want to see Ty have that Louisiana Monroe game. He'd have to throw for 500 yards. I don't care about that. But that 17 for 17 sounds nice. That'll get him in a rhythm, get him excited. It's kind of like, there's this golf thing about, some advice when you're not putting well. That I read one time from a putting guru. It says, when you're not putting well, do this. Make a bunch of, on the practice green, make a bunch of 2-footers. Just 2-footers. Get used to putting the ball and hearing it land in the hole. Just get used to, okay, this is one I can make. Do it over and over again. Kickers that are in a slump, what do? Make the extra points. Go out there and drill 30 extra points in a row. Get used to making kicks again. That's what Ty needs to do throwing the football. Completion. I don't care what the end results are, what the yards or the points. So Ty, highly efficient, run the ball at least as well as Lindenwood did. Overcome any minor adversities because they're probably going to make a play or two in your backfield. That's what they do pretty well. They'll do it a couple times. And don't turn over the ball. Play clean football. Get out of there with nobody hurt, but go into Auburn a confident football team, because literally the entire season rides on the outcome at Jordan-Hare.
Yeah, that's 100%. I mean, and I once again, and we're kind of going back and forth. In some ways, I don't think it's right, but I'm kind of excited in a sense that the SEC championship game will mean something to all Alabama fans if they can make it. They're now at this point, like I said, the only guarantee you've got of getting in is to make the SEC championship. And if you make the SEC championship and BYU doesn't beat Texas Tech, then they're no longer a problem. And even if Alabama loses the SEC championship, I still think it is quite possible that they remain in the college football playoff. So my point in saying that is, I think all Alabama fans at this point should be pulling to make the SEC championship. I didn't like this feeling of, man, we're kind of these fans that believe, if we don't make it, we'll be fine. I don't agree with that. So I think regardless of whether you make it or you don't, you could be left out. But now essentially everybody's moving along the same lines. They should be pulling for an SEC championship appearance. They should be pulling for an SEC championship win. I think that's going to make that a lot more exciting. But what I will say about this coaching staff, after the LSU game, I think that was a different type of awakening for them in this sense. They had spent the bye week, 2 weeks, really trying to improve the run game. Not only did it not improve against LSU, but it in some ways regressed further. I think that was so alarming that you saw sweeping changes, if you think about it. They were rotating 3 different positions prior to last week's game against Oklahoma. They rotated 1 against Oklahoma. They moved a guy who had seen spot reps at right guard, and they made him their full-time 100% of the snaps right guard. They put a true freshman who had started one other game and had played pretty consistently throughout the year, but had not been the full-on 100% snaps. They put him at right tackle. They left him there. They put Daniel Hill as the lead, wasn't the starting, but the lead back. He had 20 touches in the game. His first time touching the ball 20 or more times in his career. They made a lot of changes to try to get things fixed. I like the changes that they made. I thought Wilkin played well. I thought overall Michael Carroll played well. I thought the offensive line as a whole played pretty well, especially considering who they were going against. And I think Daniel Hill, despite the fact that you really didn't see anything other than the one explosive 28-yard run, you didn't see, it was just pretty consistent stuff. But he was an impact player. An impact player. He was reliable in the passing game as far as catching the football at least. And he ran the football better. And I think as he got more volume, he got better running the football. So I think that is these are things that you did against Oklahoma that I want to see you continue to commit to against Eastern Illinois to get some sort of continuity. And then I want to see you commit to that same situation against Auburn in a couple of weeks. And then by that point, maybe some of these things that have lacked consistency as far as the different lineups and the different usage and all these changes going on as far as the run game, Jam's out of the lineup, he's in the lineup, he's out of the lineup, he's in the lineup, Daniel Hill being available, like all these things that you're starting to commit to. Hopefully that continuity will end up benefiting Alabama by the end of the season. And some of these problems maybe with the run game can start to at least look a little bit more serviceable or a little bit better.
Yeah, it sounds exactly like something I would like to see. And, when you play a team like Eastern Illinois, it's a lot like the Louisiana Monroe situation, right? You come off the loss, but you're playing Louisiana Monroe. And now not only you need to use the opportunity to get better. How do you improve playing against a team that you should crush? They did. I'll contend that win was one of Alabama's better wins of the season and better performances of the season, because the situation demanded you to play well. I think coming off the Oklahoma loss, this situation demands Alabama to play well. The committee just disrespected you. You just lost to Oklahoma. I think all year long, a lot of Alabama fans pointed to Eastern Illinois and said, hey, this is the game where we get to see A.K. Deer. This is the game where we get to see Keelan Russell play quarterback. This is the game where we get to see these young guys we're so excited about that are the future of the program. I'd hit the brakes on all that. I think the first team needs to play a lot. The first team needs to develop confidence, and you need to replicate that Louisiana Monroe performance this weekend. And by that, I mean the first team playing a lot and the first team playing well. And I'm worried more about that than I am about seeing the young guys, because as excited as I am about the future, the present is more important. And the present means getting this team in as good a shape as possible before you go play the huge game at Auburn. So I'd like to see the first team play quite a bit Saturday, Clint, and I don't want to hurt Eastern Illinois' feelings. I'm never into humiliating anyone, just like Nick Saban. I don't want to humiliate anybody. But Alabama needs to score 70. By that to me is kind of a barometer of playing well on offense against this team. You scored 70 against Monroe. Eastern Illinois is not as good as Louisiana. Louisiana Monroe might beat them by 70. I mean, they wouldn't, but they would beat them. But you got to play well this week on offense and get that first team feeling good about themselves. And if Eastern Illinois, if there's an ugly score at the end of the game, at least they're getting fat.
Yeah, fair enough, man. I'm right there with you. I do feel like that just you needed all the reps you can get. Now that you've tried, and I'm not saying they've committed to it, because I thought they committed to Jaden Roberts at right guard, and then all of a sudden after 2 full games of that, then they go to Wilkin Formby. So maybe we end up seeing something completely different. And if they do that, I'm not going to agree with it. Now, granted, if they went back to Jaden Roberts, I don't necessarily think he did anything to lose his job. So I didn't see anything on tape that was like egregious or terrible, where it's like it was very shocking to me that he didn't play at all. Now, here's the thing. I think you got a true freshman at right tackle. I don't know how good or not good Jaden Roberts is as a communicator, but having a guy like Wilkin Formby, that is one of the things that the coaching staff has talked about with him. Good at communication, relaying things, maybe having that veteran presence, and somebody that has played right tackle for Alabama, playing right next to the guy who's currently playing right tackle. I mean, Jaden Roberts might not know everything that Michael Carroll's supposed to do, but Wilkin Formby will. So maybe that was part of the reason. I have no idea. But either way, I just want to see some sort of continuity. I have once again been on this train of I love the rotation. I think it's beneficial. But it's time. It's time to start committing, and it really probably should have already happened but I respect the fact that they made the sweeping changes. They are not happy with the result. And just like a lot of fans wanted, they didn't go to AK Deer like they wanted. They didn't go to Will Sanders like people like me probably wanted them to, but they are clearly trying to get this thing fixed, and they're willing to make some pretty big changes or switches to try to make that happen. So give them a lot of credit for that. Another thing that I just want to touch on, based off of what I saw on tape, I think Eastern Illinois' offensive line really struggles as far as bringing off-ball pressure, kind of what Oklahoma did to Alabama. I could see Deontay Lawson, Nikai Hill-Green, Justin Jefferson, like one or multiple of those guys having quite a bit of success if they want to kind of, not throw the kitchen sink, but like if they're not playing super vanilla against Eastern Illinois and they're actually playing to exploit weaknesses, that's something that I noticed on tape that they were really struggling with. So wouldn't be surprised if you saw some of that stuff. But this is a chance for Alabama to get things back on track. I know we talked negatively about the college football playoff rankings and stuff. There's still, like, BYU has to beat Texas Tech, in my opinion. It's possible that teams ahead of Alabama could end up losing. Right now, we had this same conversation around this time last year, and Alabama didn't even go out there and do what it needed to do, handle business like it needed to handle business in order to even make that conversation worth having. We're doing the same thing this year. We're going ahead and committing to it early before we actually see it. Should probably be having this conversation after the Iron Bowl, but they've got to go out and do this against Eastern Illinois, do it against Auburn, and do their part to make sure this conversation is worth having in a couple of weeks when things really start to ramp up. So Eastern Illinois will be a great place for that to start. Jimmy, you got anything else before we hop out of here, brother?
No, just the countdown to Auburn begins. I mean, I can't remember off the top of my head an Iron Bowl of this significance for Alabama. It'll be significant for Auburn too. They want to go to a bowl. Beating Alabama would make their season. We all know what the Alabama game means to the Auburn people. DJ Durkin coaching to become the permanent head coach at Auburn. Very meaningful game. I would harken back. I mean, it's just kind of hard to come up with, okay, when was the last time the Iron Bowl meant what this meant? For Alabama, a one-game season. Winning, you're in, most likely. Losing, you're definitely out.
Yeah, so, no doubt.
Whatever you do this Saturday against Eastern Illinois has to build toward what you're trying to accomplish at Auburn the next week.
And a lot of people are saying right now that Auburn has nothing to lose. I mean, bowl eligibility. I mean, you ain't been bowl eligible in a while, so I wouldn't say it's nothing to lose. Now, granted, Auburn fans are probably saying, I don't care about that. We're worried about next coach. We don't care what this one does, this interim, DJ Durkin, whatever. But what I will say is this entire time, Alabama has been consistently getting up for a lot of really tough opponents, and they've done it in the back of their head knowing they had probably one other mulligan. Now, that could end up being false, but we all thought they kind of had another mulligan, and that mulligan has been used. So your backs are against the wall. You come out. Let's see what you're made of. Their backs were against the wall in after week one, because, I mean, you looked that bad that it didn't matter if it was just one loss. Everybody's like, that this season's over before it starts. I mean, in a lot of ways. So you had to come out swinging, and they certainly did. I hope to see the same thing moving forward, because you have to come out swinging. And what this committee is also telling you is it is absolutely about style points. Not sure how much Eastern Illinois is going to help with you on that. But again, if you go out there and win 77-0 and you have 2 passes hit the ground and you run for 220 yards and do all these things, it's not going to hurt you. Might not help you, but it won't hurt you. And then, of course, style points have to matter against Auburn as well. It's sad that we're in this state, but that's what it is. Jimmy, I appreciate you hopping on here with me, brother. This has been a therapeutic conversation for me. After last night, I realized in real time just how dangerous it had become for Alabama after making a lot of assumptions. I was wrong for doing that. I apologize to people for making those assumptions, but I really need to get some of this stuff off my chest, because I was planning to go to bed at like 8:45 last night, and I was up till like 11:30 just fuming. I was not happy. So everybody get on over to robat.com. Use the promo code Crimson20 to get 20% off your order. Also, wherever you listen to your podcast, really helps us out, guys. I promise it would go a long way in helping us. Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen, go search the Cover Crimson Podcast Network, hit that follow or download button. Let us know if you do that. Leave it in the comments because we want to show appreciation. And if you already have, definitely let us know. We want to show appreciation to each and every one of you who have done that. We thank you guys so much, and we will talk to you guys soon.